Hello, I am Duncan Lievi from Lievi on Wrestling, and I will be previewing and reviewing Survivor Series coming up this Sunday. But before that, I wanted to address something that a lot of these wrestling outlets are having an issue with, and that is Drew McIntyre regaining the title, which has led to the question, why did he lose the title in the first place? And the reasons for me are multifold, so I don't have an issue with Orton winning the title at the time he did. I would have booked his title win, Orton's title win, at a different time for sure. But the fact that he won it does not disturb me nearly as much as a lot of people who were getting behind McIntyre and wanted McIntyre to have a very long title reign. But I'm not seeing the big problem with McIntyre losing the title after 200 days in the first place, and then regaining it so quickly. So it is essentially reestablishing how much of a beast Drew McIntyre can be. And the fact that the higher-ups are still behind him, probably even more than before. So first I'll address what the win does for McIntyre, him regaining the title. McIntyre is now a multiple-time world champion, having won both his titles this year. And that is great. We don't have multiple-time champions active. We don't have those many of them. We have Orton, we have Reigns, we have Seth Rollins, we have Rey Mysterio, but he's nowhere close to a title reign right now. We have Daniel Bryan. Other than that, Kevin Owens won it once. Who else is there on the roster? If you look at Raw, you have Kofi Kingston, again, one-time champion. The point is that historically, if you look at the people who have the most number of titles in history, in no particular order, Orton, Edge, John Cena, Triple H, Hulk Hogan, Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns. So what do all these names have in common? They're all, at one time, they were perennial main eventers during the peak of their careers, and they are household names, almost household names. Orton, Cena, even Edge, Hulk Hogan, obviously, Stone Cold, Rock. They were multiple-time champions as well. They are. So the point is, when someone is trusted to win the title those many times, no matter how many times they lose it, because of course, obviously, they have to lose it those many times as well, unless they relinquish it. But if someone is trusted to win the title those many times, it gives the viewer the impression, the audience, that this is a person that deserves the title because he wins it repeatedly. He deserves the spotlight that he's given. Unless it's blatantly obvious that the title wins that this person is being afforded are giveaways. Sometimes I got the feeling that certain superstars, like Charlotte, Sasha Banks, sometimes even Roman Reigns, they got title wins simply because they had no other superstar deserving of that spot. Charlotte defeated Bayley once for the SmackDown Women's Championship. Then Bayley won it back a week later. And then Charlotte recently also won the NXT Women's Championship from Rhea Ripley at WrestleMania. I didn't know what the point for that was. And now Charlotte is probably going to return to Raw and take the title off of Asuka. So these title reigns are not long and they don't mean much. But if you look at on the women's side, see Charlotte. She's won 11, I think, titles. And you have Sasha Banks, who's won 5. Alexa Bliss has won 4 or 5 as well. And you have Bayley, who's won, I think, 3. Not entirely sure. So they're all important performers. And on the men's side as well, Sheamus is also a multiple-time champion. So that adds to their resume. No one really cares how or for how long you won the title. No one casual. No casual viewer. Because if you compare resumes and you say, okay, he's a multiple-time world champion. Christian is a multiple-time world champion. Of course, there's an asterisk attached to it that Christian's title reigns were not significant. He lost them immediately. But he's still a multiple-time world champion. He gets the respect that comes as a result of being a multiple-time world champion. McIntyre now is a multiple-time world champion, and he will win more. He will lose the title, I don't think, any sooner than WrestleMania, unless they have plans for Orton regaining the title or the title being given to AJ Styles. I don't think that's likely, but McIntyre now, in the eyes of the WWE and the WWE Universe is someone who deserves to win multiple world championships, because no one is abjectly sad that McIntyre won the title back. He carries himself like a champion. He's the best booked face world champion in years. I'd say since Daniel Bryan. Drew McIntyre is the best booked babyface world champion we've had since Daniel Bryan. And Daniel Bryan's reign was not that significant. He had to relinquish the title, or he lost it as well. So, injuries and everything. McIntyre is very important for the WWE. I was advocating for McIntyre being in the world title scene as recently as I wanted him to become champion as soon as he was called up from NXT. But they fed him to Reigns in 2018, and they had Reigns beat him multiple times at WrestleMania, then at Fastlane, and then Shane McMahon beat Roman Reigns by shenanigans. And then McIntyre finally broke out of the shadow of Dolph Ziggler and broke out of stupid factions, and then made his own way to Royal Rumble, where he eliminated Brock Lesnar, then took the title off Lesnar at WrestleMania, rightfully so. It was overdue. And I'm glad that this year he's got 2 world titles, because no matter what happens with his current reign, and I hope that they book him well, but no matter what happens, he will always be at least a 2-time world champion, and I'm predicting that he'll at least win 5 in his career. He's not that old. He's in his mid-30s, 35. And that puts him in a good position, because I saw the promotional tweet from the WWE promoting the upcoming Reigns-McIntyre match, and they have these statistics, they have these qualifiers. How many world titles won? Reigns is 5, McIntyre 2, finishing move, spear, claymore, weight, all those things. So it's good to have the 2 in McIntyre's column as compared to just 1, because even though there's a lot of credence attached to the length of the title reign, that's not the primary thing that people ask when they hear, okay, so he's a 2-time world champion. Okay, how long were those reigns? That's a statistic that is important more to hardcore fans. And we care about those things. I care about the fact that CM Punk's 434-day reign was much, much more significant than Brock Lesnar's 500-plus day reign as Universal Champion, because Brock Lesnar was barely there. It still constitutes 1 title reign for Brock, but Brock did not do nearly as much. He didn't work house shows. He worked the big 4 pay-per-views, and maybe he made an appearance here or there to defend it. Maybe he had a defense at the Beast in the East. These sort of shows, live shows, the special shows. But he was not a regular feature on the roster as CM Punk was, and that makes it very clear that CM Punk claiming that his 434-day reign was equatable to the very long reigns of the past, those of Bruno Sammartino, Hulk Hogan, and all those other people, Ivan Nikolov. So it's important to us because we care about those things, but for the average viewer, number of title reigns is very important, and Drew McIntyre is now a 2-time world champion. He'll be a 3-time, 4-time, 5-time. So, and that's great. As for why Orton was the one to take it off him, at the time there were very few believable heel wrestlers on the Raw roster before the Superstar Shakeup, or the draft, this year. And Orton, to Orton's credit, was having a career year. He's cooled off since then, and I still think that 2020 will go down as probably the second best year of his entire career so far, from a character work point of view and also a ring work point of view. He has put in so many more layers. He's worked a lot on his promos. His development as a performer and as a figure backstage has been documented in a lot of interviews that are about how Orton has grown as a person, and now he's a leader backstage, and he offers advice to the younger wrestlers. So that goes to show that Orton is approaching his role very maturely. Orton, if nothing else, you could see Orton winning the title as a recognition of how good his work this year has been, starting with the feud with Edge, which for me still is the rivalry of the year, that culminated in the Backlash match, which is, for me, again, match of the year, with AJ Styles, Daniel Bryan on SmackDown being a close second. Orton's promos, like I mentioned, his motivation. You can see how motivated he was for even at the beginning stages of the feud with Drew McIntyre, where that rivalry between Drew and Orton fell apart for me was when Orton started making fun of Drew and all the other people he had punted, and those people went to the hospital. They started spamming the punt, and then they made the whole feud about finishers, which for me deterred from the point of the feud. And post SummerSlam, the feud started to go down, and a lot of people just immediately said, "Oh, they've been feuding for so long. Will this ever end?" And if booked properly, it could have been much better. And if Orton had to win a match in that feud, SummerSlam would have been the right time because he had all the heat to go with it. And then you could have booked a babyface chasing a heel champion narrative. And then, after failing to do so at Clash of Champions, you could have Drew McIntyre regaining the title inside Hell in a Cell, which is typically a sight for the end of feuds. But in this case, of course, what really happened was that Orton won at Hell in a Cell. I was completely fine with that. And then you very suddenly booked Orton to lose the title in his first defense. This title reign, I know why it happened. At least I can have my confident theories. And at the same time, I'm really glad that McIntyre won it back. Because now I think Orton is free to have a mini rivalry with The Fiend, or he can go after Miz, or he can insert himself into the main event of Survivor Series coming up, and he can cost Drew the match, so as to protect both Reigns and Drew. So I don't really see the big deal with why people are so angry. I mean, Orton winning the title, it is overdue because the man had not won a world title since 2017. He lost to Jinder Mahal. He put Jinder over. He's put Daniel Bryan over. He put Mark Henry over in 2011. He has put John Cena, Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, Keith Lee this year, Sheamus even, Drew McIntyre multiple times already. So if your biggest heel threat, in this case being Orton, keeps losing, then beating Orton does not mean much because everyone's beating him. And Orton is not a washed up, withered legend. He is a legend, but he's very, very young for a legend. He's 40, and his work rate is pretty much as good as it has ever been. And when he's motivated, he's one of the best in the world. I'd say he's close to the damn top. So there's no reason for everyone to be so despondent at his title win. He deserved to win the title. I thought he was warming the title until Edge arrived, but I was proven wrong, and I was happy to be proven wrong because Drew deserves the title too. And that was for all the reasons that I've already mentioned. So that was kind of a long-winded way of me telling you that there's no reason for being so sad or angry about Drew losing the title and then winning it back. I wish they would have done this a little sooner, having Orton win the title at SummerSlam and then Drew chasing, which has historically been a rather successful way of booking sympathetic narratives for even strong baby faces. So he overcomes the odds and then wins. So that's it. I think this is why it makes sense. And of course, from a practical point of view, I suppose that WWE wanted to indulge in their practice of never promising a match without actually giving it to you. So they don't tease things that they never pay off, which is very clear as well with how they've inserted Drew into the Survivor Series main event match. So you had Drew crash SmackDown, and then confront Roman Reigns. So they tease that matchup. Usually WWE does not have patience. They don't wait to give you that match. So if they tease something, it's very clear. After that appearance from Drew on SmackDown, and then Drew beat Jey Uso, there was very little doubt as to whether or not he would walk out of Raw. To me, it was almost obvious that he was going to win on Raw. Just a matter of how. Was it going to be because the Fiend distracted Orton? Was it because Miz would create some sort of distraction at ringside? The apron, whatever. But they had Drew go over Orton clean. They did not spam finishers, as is the case with most high-profile rivalries Orton has had a great year. Now I'm not sure where he goes. He could maybe beat down Sheamus, take Sheamus' spot on the Raw Survivor Series team, and then win the match for them, which would be a good continuation of the momentum Orton has had this year, despite losing many more times than he's won. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Drew is now set up for plenty of challengers after the draft. The number of challengers that he can potentially have is plentiful. So we'll see how it goes. But that's why all of this was to convey to you that don't worry, it's okay. It's all right. The way they've booked it was a little hodgepodge, a little too impatient, but the destination is still good. Destination being WrestleMania. Drew is probably going to be your champion. Even Orton could be the champion, or they could go another route and give Fiend the championship, which has not been a good idea for the character in general, but we never know. And Edge and Fiend is being discussed in place of Orton Edge. I'm not sure. We'll just have to see. But so far the pieces are good. WWE is in a better place than they were in, say, August, September. They've recovered a few things. Reigns is killing it in SmackDown, over on SmackDown. So it's a good time to be a fan. I don't think there's a lot of reasons to be despondent about the main event scene. It's pretty okay. There are many things that are not good, but there are reasons to be optimistic. Just let's see how this goes. And I'll be back with the preview for Survivor Series along with the predictions, which I'm still keeping a track of. I just have to see where that notebook is. And I'll also review the show. Till next time, this is Duncan Lievi. Thanks for watching.